Hola, how are you guys doing? Welcome to the Sunday stream. I'm probably only going to be here for about an hour today. So not much going on the non-wrestling front, but I do want to talk about Dragon Ball Magic, which apparently has been a thing that has been bouncing around on the internet for like the last couple of hours, maybe the last couple of days actually, and we're certainly going to well we strongly in the Dragon Ball fandom over here. All right, we are very strong Dragon Ball fans over here. So I'm definitely interested in any new Dragon Ball product. So when Dragon Ball Magic comes out, I will be watching it. We will be talking about it. But let's get some initial thoughts on what's going on with this whole Dragon Ball Magic thing. And then if there's some time, I'll talk about some of the future things I want to do on this channel for a little while. And also, I am reading a couple of interesting stories and things like that I might want to share. What's up, WG Field? So, how's everybody doing? Hope everybody's doing okay. Let's get right into what we know of Dragon Ball Magic. Apparently, somebody has some bullet points in terms of what we have. Now, it should be noted that not all of this is true. Some of this is not going to end up being not true. Apparently, in about 3 weeks, there's going to be a uh, a con or something where they're going to officially announce Dragon Ball Magic, and then we will get official information from the individuals who are going to be making the show. So this is basically just saying, hey, the name at least is legit, and maybe some other things in it are going to be legit, but there might end up being some some ideas that are not used here because the plots and things like that might change. WG Phil says, "I'm not gonna do the retrospective on my Joseph Campbell books. When I actually crack them open and read them, I probably will." All right. So here's the summary news of the new web anime Dragon Ball Magic. The name will be Dragon Ball Magic. The plot will resolve around Goku and the Supreme Kai, who's known as Shin, will be transformed into children by a demon. They will travel from planet to planet in search of the demon. This will be set before the end of Z. There will be various enemies on each planet. There will be new characters, two in particular, who will help Goku and the Supreme Kai. Obviously, the old characters will also be there. It says the character designer from some of the older series will also be there. So the style will tend towards that of the 90s. Okay. It says it will be about the first half of 2024, 14 to 15 episodes, lasting roughly 30 to 40 minutes, will be published by Crunchyroll in most parts of the world. Now, don't know how much of this is going to be true, but let's talk about it as if it is true. Let us discuss it as if this is very true. A lot of people are concerned about the plot. The plot being Goku is once again turned into a child. This was, of course, a plot done in GT. I think it was done poorly in GT because he maintained his power despite the fact that he was turned into a child. Now, if he was literally like time was reversed and he was turned into a child and he lost his ability to transform and all that kind of stuff, well, I guess they would be a little bit different. So just because we know, at least it's said that he was transformed into a child, doesn't mean it's going to be done the same way that GT did it. Also, this is supposed to be a sort of celebration of the 40 years since the Dragon Ball manga came out. So it stands to reason that they might want to do Child Goku. My question, of course, would be why is the Supreme Kai his partner on this mission? Now, I guess because the Supreme Kai can move from planet to planet, he could teleport, so maybe that makes him useful. They don't have to get into a ship. Okay, I guess. Um, it being a literal journey to find, the ancient demon or whatever the hell that turned them into children and trying to defeat that demon, I think the plot is fine. You know, if it wasn't for the fact that they had already done the thing where Goku was turned into a child, I think people wouldn't have a problem with this. The fact that this already had been done in GT, I think that has people kind of agitated because they're like, okay, Dragon Ball once again is reusing plots, and Dragon Ball has reused plots several times, and it's been a detriment to the franchise. If we're being honest, is how often they kind of fall back on certain things. Cell Max, androids. Bringing back Broly, Frieza. These kinds of things. People have said, oh well, with the exception of maybe Broly, people have been kind of agitated about Dragon Ball reusing things, especially when it's not hasn't been that long since the last time you used it. But GT came out over 20 years ago. The argument about whether this thing is going to be canon or not canon, or I don't concern myself with that. At this point, Dragon Ball has become a franchise as much like Spider-Man or Captain America or something like that, where there's so much Dragon Ball content and so much of it is so different from the original manga that you have to basically look at the universes as if they're different things. Like the Marvel animated movies, not the Marvel animated, the Marvel Cinematic Universe are different versions than the 616 Marvel Universe. And those are different than the Marvel Ultimate Universe. And it's different from the Old Man Logan universe, which is also a Marvel universe, which is different from the Maestro universe, which is also a Marvel universe. And there's 100 different futures featuring 100 different characters, so there's like literally thousands of universes within Marvel Comics. And when you pick up a book, you're typically supposed to know what universe you're operating in, you know? And you could operate in the Ultimate Universe where, Hawkeye can bite off his fingernails and spit them, and his fingernail can go through somebody's head. Or you could be in the universe where Hawkeye is a regular guy who's pretty good with a bow and arrow, but slowly but surely going blind, and he's kind of feckless. Or you could be in the Old Man Logan universe where he's old, kind of washed up, but still very deadly and dangerous and out for revenge. So there's a lot of different, iterations of the characters. And I know that Dragon Ball fans, some of them, because they're fans of anime, they don't necessarily get that. They're not, most of them are not traditional comic book fans. But trust me, I can accept that Dragon Ball has different universes. Like I look at Z as being different from Super. I look at GT as being different from Super, which is different from Z. And these are all different universes featuring the same characters. They're just different takes on the same characters. And Dragon Ball Magic will be a different take of the same characters, Regardless of what they choose to do, it's just going to be a different take on these same characters. Which means that none of this stuff is probably going to be in the manga, because it's not. The manga is already completed. I know that Dragon Ball Super has a companion manga, but that retcons certain elements of the Dragon Ball Z manga and is written and drawn by somebody else with Toriyama giving some direction. So it's not exactly the original story, but these are additions to the original story and renditions of the original stories. There's literally 4 or 5 different versions of the Dark Phoenix X-Men story. There's at least 2 different movie versions. There's the comic version, the original version. And then there's, the cartoon version from the 90s. And then there's just like a bunch of other versions. And then there's retellings of it that retcon certain things. So once you start looking at Dragon Ball, how you look at Spider-Man or X-Men or Fantastic Four or something like that, I think it becomes easier, and you could stop having these "is it canon" argument, and you could basically just start saying, I don't like this version of Dragon Ball. I don't like how the characters operate in this universe when it comes to Dragon Ball. And that's how I feel about GT, quite frankly. I just don't like how especially some of the power scaling in GT didn't make any sense, and how some of the characters behaved didn't make much sense. Did I like some of the villains? Sure. Did I like some of the storylines? Sure. But overall, I didn't care for GT as a complete product. I didn't like that universe. Um, so Super, I'm a little bit more amenable to, but I'm kind of on the fence about Super. Kind of on the fence. I like the later parts. I think once they start adapting the movies, I think that it probably got and started becoming sort of its own realm. I did like it. I like the movies. Well, I like the Broly movie. Superhero, it was okay. But once you accept that Dragon Ball has outgrown the manga and now it's a franchise, then things like Dragon Ball Heroes make sense to you because it's a different universe. It's a different take on the same characters. And there's going to be different takes on the same characters. I mean, you can't do anything about it. The difference being is that Dragon Ball was supposed to have ended, but due to popularity, it keeps coming back. And as things that keep coming back does, they're going to end up retconning things. And I was watching Dragon Ball Super Broly. Either it was last night or the night before last. And I just watching that, you see so much stuff get retconned, and you realize that the Super universe and the Z universe, especially if you go by the Z anime, it's completely goddamn different. For starters, Goku not being a baby when he comes to Earth, he's a child, but he's like maybe 3 or 4, and actually seeing his parents and know what they look like. His mom is never mentioned in Z. She's never even hinted at in Z. Bardock is more of a softer, kinder guy in Super than he is in Z. Especially in the Z movies that he featured in, where he's basically sort of generic Saiyan who looks like Goku. And there's things that, certain characters don't matter as much. More characters do matter. For instance, I liked in the Z movie for Bardock, he got into a scrap with Doria. I thought that was fun. He was abandoned out on a planet, and he had to fight his way back because Frieza is about to betray the Saiyans. In the Broly movie, the retcons all that. It basically says Bardock just had a feeling that Frieza was up to no good, instead of him already knowing that Frieza was going to do what he did. Also, it retconned King Vegeta. King Vegeta tries to kill Frieza in I think the original Bardock movie. He doesn't play a role at all in trying to overthrow Frieza in the Dragon Ball Broly movie. Paragus is older in the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie than he is in the other one, even though the way to control Broly is the exact same way. Broly is stronger in the Super movie. He's absurd, but they actually explain in some ways how he has so much power, at least initially, how he has so much power. Then the power scaling goes off crazy because he starts having to fight Gogeta. It's like, what the fuck? Anyway, this stuff starts to come in. Things that were not in the original story start to come in. And so now people are like, oh, God, Bulma has a sister. She's never had a sister before. It's like, well, Toriyama added a sister. It doesn't really change the story at all. She has an off-panel sister. Okay, no big deal. That's a lot different than, Mai being a child in another universe, but that's not possible because she wasn't turned into a child in that universe. I mean, it's a lot of just weird stuff. But if you look at Super and Z as 2 different universes, 2 different takes of the same characters, it makes a lot more sense than if you try to make it look like it's one long continuation. It's okay to say the Dragon Ball's manga ends with a certain chapter, and that's it. That's the original canon. Everything else is just a different take on those same characters in a different universe, and it won't affect in any way people's enjoyment. People enjoy Batman stories even though they're in alternate universes. Some of the most important Batman stories happen in alternate universes. So it's not a big deal. People are not going to automatically, if you just say, well, the show is non-canon, they're not going to care. If they're fans of Dragon Ball, they're going to watch it anyway, and they're not going to give a shit whether it's canon or not, because they watch Dragon Ball Heroes, they play the video games, all that stuff retells the stories in different and unique ways. So, I mean, it is what it is in that faction. So I don't really look at Dragon Ball Magic and say, oh, it's not canon. So it's like, well, none of this shit is canon, if we're being honest. Like almost none of it is. So I'm looking at it from the potential of it's a different take on the same characters. That's how I look at it. And I'm okay with you having different takes of the same characters. I'm okay with a franchise. So again, some of the highest selling Batman stories have been outside of the main DC universe. And, it happens. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that as long as things aren't completely made up whole cloth, it comes across like fan fiction, as long as Toriyama has some involvement, I think people are going to be okay. Now, all that to say, I'm not thrilled about the idea of Goku being turned into a kid. I'm not thrilled about that idea. Only because they've already done it with GT. But I'll give them the opportunity to win me over. I'm not going to say completely I'm not interested. I'll give them the opportunity to do something else. Like there have been elements of Dragon Ball that I haven't been happy with. Battle of Gods, I didn't really care for that. It was okay, but it just every new Dragon Ball thing seems to introduce new characters that end up being pointless or that serve no real purpose other than being gag characters a little bit later. And the original cast ends up becoming really bloated, and then you stop seeing people that you actually liked. You start seeing them a lot less. It's almost to the point now where people like Yamcha and Chaozu, they barely even get into these shows and movies and stuff anymore, and they're from the original cast. And I know Toriyama forgets characters and stuff like that. I get it, but when you do that and you keep adding characters, then it happens that the original cast bloats to the point where you can't keep track of everybody. And it's okay, I guess. It's all right. I ain't tripping on that. Vegeta Lover says, it's easy to assume Frieza's going to do something bad. He's evil. Well, yeah. Again, I haven't watched Dragon Ball Super Broly again. There was some some issues that I had with it. Like I really liked it, if we're being honest. Even in terms of it being a retcon of Saiyan life and Bardock as a character and resetting Broly, and he made all of the characters more sympathetic. Even Paragus, Paragus is more sympathetic, even though he's still a brutal asshole. He's more sympathetic in the Super movie than he is in the original movie. Because he genuinely cares about Broly in the Super movie. He wants to use him as a weapon and he wants to control him. But you see when Frieza kills Paragus that it's basically just Frieza not the one manipulating him, which is worse than his own dad manipulating him. But you get more sympathy, and I think maybe that's Toriyama getting older and him thinking that a softer touch of the characters was needed. Dragon Ball has gotten significantly less brutal the longer it's gone forward. And some people have like, oh, there's no blood in Dragon Ball anymore. And it's like, yeah, there's also significantly more female characters in Dragon Ball now than they used to be. So You look at it and saying like, oh, the franchise is changing. I mean, of course it's changing, but uh, I'm hoping that this Dragon Ball Magic concept is still classic Dragon Ball and feels like classic Dragon Ball. It doesn't feel like a cash grab, and it feels like something that's actually going to be useless. WG Phil says, "What's up with Sean Schemmel hating on the One Piece live action? Anime has no reason being this insufferable." I don't know. I don't follow him, so I don't know. I heard the One Piece fans are happy with the One Piece live action, which is the important thing, I think. I've never watched it. I've never gotten into One Piece, so I didn't watch the live action either. I only watch the live action movies of products that I actually care about. And I still haven't seen the live action movie for Full Metal Alchemist or Attack on Titan yet. I haven't watched Attack on Titan because I'm worried they're going to spoil the real ending rather than change the ending. But they also ruined Death Note. It ruined it. Ugh. Even the Japanese movies aren't that great. They're not terrible, but they're not that great. Allegedly, Toriyama is more involved with this than he is with Super. Okay, look, I can't say, if something I created lasted for 40 years and people loved it and they wanted me to make more of it, I wouldn't be any different than Toriyama. I would tweak characters and change stuff in order to keep it going. Not just for the money because I'm a evil, greedy capitalist, but if people show that they're interested in the product and you say, hey, it would have been nice if I'd have had time because as a writer, you already know that everything has to be edited. So there might have been some really crazy ideas that you wanted to put in the first one that you never got around to. So now if you have a chance to do a sequel, now you want to put it in there. If you have a chance to do a spinoff, you want to put it in there. So there's always those little things here and there. And then Toriyama is also in a situation where other people are so energized by his product. There's so many people. And then, Toei and Shueisha and everybody's adding ideas and they're taking small things that he did and fleshing them out, like the whole Bardock animated movie, which he had, he didn't know much about that at all. And all of a sudden, Bardock became one of the most popular characters in the franchise. And he just kind of has to roll with it. Like he's just kind of like, okay, well, I guess Bardock is popular. Here's my version of Bardock, which ended up being the Bardock we got in Super. Same thing with Broly. Broly was a character that he didn't create. He probably designed him, but he didn't create him. He had nothing really to do with the idea of the creation of the character. So when he had the opportunity to rewrite it and to make Broly his own and fit him into the universe, he did so in a way that was more typically like the way he would have done it. And it's interesting. I can't say he did anything wrong so far. I wish they would kill off more characters and not bring them back, like Boo, for instance. But Dragon Ball has an amazing cast of characters, and it's okay to have different versions of those characters. Those characters have histories that have gone unexplored. There's a lot of world and universe that these characters, are unexplored. There's just so much. I mean, despite the fact that the franchise has been around for 40 years, there's so many of these of the ideas that he created that he didn't expand on that other people choose to take and expand on. Like the race that the Saiyans shared a planet with before they destroyed them. Somebody took that and created, the Safarians, the baby and his race and all those people. Then, there was, what are Frieza's people called? They have no name. Why does Tien have 3 eyes? There's just little things here and there that you kind of that went unexplained. That typically anime go on for so long that they end up explaining every single goddamn thing about the character. In some ways, they even over-explain the characters. But Dragon Ball has been going on for 40 years, and there's still things about the characters that we don't understand, that we don't know. You know, characters disappear and then return and then disappear again. They make cameos and then they vanish. 17 was gone out of the franchise for a long time. After GT, I don't think anybody even thought about Android 17 anymore. And then he came back into the franchise, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, I know who this guy is," and you find a way to fit him back in. It happens. So everything, there's so much fertile ground in the Dragon Ball universe that I don't see why people would be mad about Dragon Ball Magic, or why you would be upset about it. I get it. Everybody would like for you to be like, "Oh, do something with Goten and Trunks. That could be fun." Yeah, it would be fun. It would be interesting. I don't like the idea that Goten and Trunks basically only do fusion and that's it. And then they're not even allowed to be a part of the regular cast. I don't necessarily like that idea. There are certain things that I, probably would have done a little bit better. But it's becoming a franchise where eventually those things will happen. Eventually, people are going to take the characters and take them in a new direction and do different things. And Dragon Ball GT was an attempt to do that when they took what shit? Why is her name Pan? Why they took Pan and tried to do something interesting with her? It was a flop. I don't think anybody even liked that version of Pan, but it was fine. It was fine, I guess. And so if it doesn't work, you just come out with something else, and we're going to give it a different try, give it a different take. And that's how comic books do it. You take the same character, revamp them, twist, pull, and it comes out to something a little bit better. Like, we haven't seen grown up Pan yet, in the Dragon Ball universe, but we've seen Pan starting to grow up a little bit. And maybe she's going to become like the GT Pan. Maybe she's not. Hopefully she's not. Hopefully. I hated that character. I don't know. See, the thing is, I don't know if he's going to be in it or not, because none of this stuff is official. I would assume that he's going to be in it. That's like I would assume pretty much everybody's going to be in it. I would certainly assume Bulma's going to be in it. Like, as far as with the information that we have, it just says that the Supreme Kai and Goku are going to be in it. Well, I don't understand why the hell the Supreme Kai even has to be in it. He's not a major character as far as I'm concerned. We could do without the Supreme Kai. But if we're going to have, he's going to be traveling from planet to planet and all this kind of stuff, it may be useful to have somebody who could teleport. All right. Well, when you have Whis also who could teleport, I don't know. We don't know what the context will be, so it ought to be, it's going to change when we get the official information. I'm just saying that right now, it being a different version of the Dragon Ball characters, different version of Child Goku, is fine with me. Because they're just taking different versions of the same characters anyway. He says Boo can't die, really. Boo can die. Boo can die. Fuck Boo. I don't care about Boo. Master Roshi ain't as perverted as he usually is. Yeah, a lot of that's another one of the things that has changed a lot. Like, he's far terrible. He was terrible in the original Dragon Ball. He was a mess. He was a mess in the original Dragon Ball. He mellowed out in Z, and now in Super he's pretty chill. And that's just a changing of the times. The Japanese audience, the Japanese company now realizes that Dragon Ball is slowly but surely becoming a Western comic. It's coming more and more Western as it goes forward, and they're cutting out certain things. Blood was one of them that they cut out. The ridiculous amount of muscles that characters used to have, they cut that stuff out, and now they also cut out Master Roshi being a pervert, which whatever. I wish they hadn't, but it is. Vegeta says Bardock is different from before, but not much. Well, he's quite a bit different, actually. Um, him having the attitude that he actually had the foresight. Now, I do like that he didn't have mystical future looking powers or whatever the fuck. That was dumb. He wasn't a psychic, which made no sense in the Bardock movie, like how he managed to be able to see into the future that his son was going to defeat Frieza. But my power went out for a second, so the internet got cut off. Um, so we don't know whether people like Vegeta's going to be in it. You know, so we don't know that much. We'll figure that part out. But I'll be able to decide whether how much I like it when I hear the official announcement. And the official announcement ought to be coming out in like 2 or 3 weeks. There's probably going to be some more leaks before then, with some concept art and stuff like that, and we'll talk about it when we come to it. Um, but I'm okay with the idea of it. I'm okay with Dragon Ball Super Magic being a thing, even if it is Goku being a kid again. I'm interested. There's new Dragon Ball content. It's going to feature new characters. So what is there to not like? You know, unless they're going to retell, like if they were remastering something like with a DBZ Kai. Like I never watched DBZ Kai because it was just a retelling of Z, and they cut out the filler. Well, guess what? I like the filler, so I don't want you changing it, and so I don't really care. So I didn't watch Kai. I didn't never watch Dragon Ball Z Kai. You know, so to me, it didn't matter that much. You know, um, I so there's certain things. I mean, you can pick and choose. I want them to keep things consistent, and the retcons bother people. But when you're writing a story, sometimes retcons happen, especially if you're trying to get everything to fit. Which is why I wish that when they made Dragon Ball Super, they instead of trying to get that to fit into Z, they said it's a different universe from Z. Because if they just said it's a different universe from Z, then some of the stuff that they were doing, they could have continued doing it. People wouldn't have complained that much about it. Like the Potara earrings only work for 30 minutes. that kind of shit. People are like, oh, I hate this. They're retconning stuff. It's like, yeah, they are, because, they needed it at that time for it to be permanent in order to add the drama of them actually fusing. But now they're kind of like, we don't want to keep these characters fused. We want to use the fusions though. And so they went with that. But you can just say it's a different spin instead of trying to say it's a continuation. Because by saying it's a continuation, people also expect all of the characters to be there. And again, and when it comes to Dragon Ball Super, there's a lot of characters who are not present, and it was weird. Like, yeah, that was the thing about GT. Like, GT somehow, Dragon Ball Super Saiyan 4 made Goku an adult, even though none of his other forms did. It was ridiculous. Like, it was a ridiculous conception. Like, totally ridiculous. And that version of Trunks is different from the version of Trunks from Z. And it's different from the version of Trunks from Super. And it's different version of Trunks from the child version of Trunks. So it's like all of these. There's like 8 different versions of Trunks. They're all different. They're all different universes. There's a Trunks that got killed by Cell. There's a Trunks that actually went back in time and trained with the Z Fighters. He ended up defeating Cell and the androids. Then there's Trunks from Super. Then there's Kid Trunks in the original timeline. Then there's future Trunks from the Super universe. Then there's another Trunks, and that also in that Super universe, if I remember correctly, who was also an adult. There's like 5 or 6 versions of Trunks, man. It's ridiculous. It's you could try to explain away things, but when Toriyama didn't keep a story Bible, and because he was writing this stuff by the seat of his pants. So he didn't keep a story Bible. He was just freestyling it. And when you do that, you typically forget stuff. You forget what you did. You forget the characters that you wrote because they're not important to the story. Especially when you write them out or you just don't go forward with them. But also you can always write characters that, characters just kind of grow out of their role and you don't need them anymore. So that's perfect for like Launch. Or Lunch. You don't need her anymore. Okay, she served her purpose, and now she's off on her own adventure. So you write her out of the story. Well, okay, that's fine. Same thing with the little Indian kid whose name I can't remember right now, Tao Pai Pai. You can write characters out and bring them back later. That's what happens in a universe, in a franchise. Characters aren't always there. Sometimes they go away and they come back. That's the nature of the beast, and I think Dragon Ball, more than any other franchise, well, now that people need to realize that the cast is changing, so it might be time to write out some of these characters. It might be time to say goodbye to Krillin and Chaozu and Tien, and now you got Whis and Beerus and Boo and Hercule, and if you start writing some of those characters out, then it's time to bring in new characters. And they serve a purpose. And then once those purposes serve, they out of there, So it is what it is. But it seems goofy to me. They're trying to make it all a continuance. I don't know. I look at it like it's separate. Maybe some of the same events happen, but it's clearly a different franchise. It's clearly different. The Biz says DBZ Super was a return to what made DBZ great. GT was awful, was trying to get on that Kid Goku magic back. Well, that's what they're doing now. That's what they're doing now. Now, here's another thing that's interesting that I just found out the other day, and that's that Toyotaro is going to make King Choppa from the original Dragon Ball. He's going to connect him with Oob, which is something I never really thought about, But apparently that's an idea Toyotaro's got, and he's going to do that. Well, it makes sense. Oob is like this little Indian kid. King Choppa is an Indian-looking character. Maybe they're from the same village, or something like that. Okay, you can expand the universe by doing that. That would make sense to me. And that's what I mean by taking different takes on the same characters. You know, you characters disappear and they come back. All right, so it's fine, you know. But sometimes we also need like some lower stakes. And I think that's something that Dragon Ball needs to work on. I think they do a pretty good job of it, like with Dragon Ball Z Broly and maybe Dragon Ball Superhero. If they bring the stakes down a little bit, it's no longer the universe is going to get destroyed, everybody's going to die. It's just kind of like personal vendetta, you know. It's just a personal vendetta at this point, you know. And superhero is well, it pits itself as a rescue mission where Pan has been kidnapped and she needs to be rescued. At least that's how it was pitched before, you see that she doesn't really need to be rescued. And it gave us a cool Piccolo in disguise. I thought that was fun. But I always like the Dragon Ball stuff that um where we don't always focus on the Saiyans so much. I like that. It would be nice if we could do that. If we could do some stuff where we don't focus on the Saiyans so much, or at least not as much on Goku and Vegeta. They can be in it, they can be around, but it's not really their story. And I like that idea. I like the idea of it being the Dragon Ball movies seem to be, well, Broly was more focused on the actual Dragon Balls themselves because Frieza wanted the Dragon Balls for a stupid reason. And it was a gag that came from the original Dragon Ball where he just wanted to be a little bit taller. It was a silly gag. And that really agitates people. That's how you know when Toriyama's involved. Because he's like, I'm going to use the Dragon Balls. I'm going to grow 5 centimeters taller. I'm like, what? How stupid is that? But that's how you know Toriyama's involved because it's a gag instead of Frieza trying to come up with. But at least they tried to came up. They came up with a pretty good reason why Frieza no longer wants to be immortal and why he doesn't want to wish for something that is sort of stereotypically evil, like he can't be hurt, he can't be harmed because he's still they softened him up a little bit. So he doesn't want to be immortal because he knows what it's like to be immobilized forever, and he doesn't like that. And he doesn't want to be that he can't be harmed because that would take the fun out of his revenge. So but that's how Dragon Ball was. Like Dragon Ball was filled with stupid wishes. Like it was that's the thing. Like it's a gag manga. The very first wish the goddamn Dragon Balls was for women's underwear. Like it's such a silly gag, and Toriyama still sees it that way. Like everybody else is trying to take it and make it this really dramatic, theatric thing. And to Toriyama, it's just he wants to tell poop jokes. He wants Whis to step in poop. He wants these guys to sit here and eat plates and plates and plates of food, and for Goku to not know what words mean. And you're talking about how the best, how can we better tell this story? And he's looking at things from how can I tell this joke? So it's a little bit different. But again, it's all different vehicles. It's all different vehicles. And it is what it is. And so I'm okay with Dragon Ball Magic existing. Do I think Vegeta will ever get a kill against a main villain? Probably not. It doesn't seem like a thing that needs to happen. It doesn't seem like it fits his role in the show. And I think that's okay. I think some people have sort of evolved. Well, different anime take a different approach to the character, the Vegeta-like character, where typically they'll have somebody who will be in that role, and then they will have a villain specifically for them to defeat. Frieza, of course, would be the guy. Vegeta. His mission is to kill Frieza again, which is he should be able to do by now. But so it was such a silly conception. But when you have these characters, it's hard to create new wants. So you have to create outside wants. And that's really when you get other characters coming in, wanting to do weird shit. So as long as they don't utilize the Dragon Ball to make Goku a kid again, because that's exactly what happened in GT. If that doesn't happen, then Dragon Ball Magic might be okay. If Dragon Ball Magic is just going to be some kind of fancy retelling of GT, I'll be pissed. Other than that, I'm open to any and all ideas, as long as it's not just a retelling of GT. Unless it's a retelling of the best parts of GT, which is the Black Star Dragons. Was I a fan of Jiren? Not really. He really didn't have much of a personality. And I mean, there were some interesting characters. I was actually more into like Toppo. I thought he was more interesting, if we're being honest. I thought Jiren was kind of boring. He's kind of a blank slate for them to test themselves against. Not really an antagonist, not really a villain. And I think that was missing. The overall threat was missing from that Tournament of Power concept. You could pretty much guess from the beginning that all the destroyed universe was going to get brought back. So, but you needed an antagonist. Like you need like a real villain in the story. And I don't think you had one. And Jiren wasn't really a real villain either. He was just like some super blank slate, super powerful guy. And I was just kind of like, shrug. Like, there's been 100 of these fucking guys in Dragon Ball, man. Like, he's seemingly unbeatable, unkillable, and you can't even hurt him. And then they beat him. So I didn't see anything special about Jiren that I thought was like made him like especially cool or anything. Like I know when Hit originally happened and he smoked Goku with one punch, I was like, okay, at least this character is interesting because we don't know how his powers work. He has a unique ability. We actually got to see his universe and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't all that. I was more interested in Hit and Toppo than I was Jiren. I didn't really care about Jiren at all, if we're being honest. And to me, it was just okay. It was just okay. But I was like, I really wished. It's hard for me to say that I really wish all those universes hadn't been brought back, but it is what it is. Black Saiyan 97 said there was a theory going around that the Grand Priest is going to be a villain. Well, I heard that, but that's having a villainous angel. I think is probably going too far because from what we know about the angels, they all use Ultra Instinct. So, and they have perfect mastery over it, so you can't touch them. Like you literally can't win. So it really doesn't. Him being sort of neutral kind of makes sense. So it seemed to me like they would have set up perfectly with Beerus being sort of the last person that's on the echelon of characters that they can actually defeat. And they befriended Beerus, so he's not a villain anymore. He's not an antagonist. He's part of the cast. They leave the baby with Beerus sometimes. So it's like they need an antagonist. They need an antagonist. They need a villain. And that's something that was missing. And I think Super and Zamasu was very good. In so much that he was a very capable villain but I think some of the writing failed him, but overall Zamasu was a great villain. It was fantastic. They needed somebody like that in the Tournament of Power. That's what they needed. They needed somebody who had malicious intent. And that would have been a great utilization, I guess you could say, of Zamasu. He's an opportunity to eliminate all mortals via the Tournament of Power. If he wins, he can wish for all mortals to be vamped from the universe. You know, he could defeat mortals in a tournament of power and then wish for all of them to be erased. You know, he would have been a great villain for the tournament of power. But Frieza, even if he used Frieza, is like Frieza, of course, is like the Joker, and that's what he's become. He's going to show up. He's going to get the tar kicked out of him. He's going to find some way to escape. They're not killing Frieza again, so he's just going to be he's not a part of the cast. He's just going to be a recurring villain, and that's fine. But you needed somebody with some malicious intent in that tournament. Somebody who's really out here trying to kill people. You know, like somebody who's really out here trying to really commit murders. Yeah, and it's also a question of, you know, is it going to reset Goku's power? You know, that's kind of my question too when it comes to this demon, quote unquote. Is if the demon turns Goku into a kid again, is he still going to have access to all of his power? Because if he is, then there's so what if he's a kid again? You know, why wouldn't? It would be funny if he turned everybody into children. Maybe that was his gimmick. He's gonna babality the entire Earth. He's gonna turn everybody on Earth into a child and reset all their power levels, and you know, force everybody to start over from zero. You know, it could be fun. But I don't know. I'm interested in what they will do and how they manage to do it. And it depends on how long the series is going to be. Because it sounds like if that's the storyline, it sounds like has a pretty good final arc to it. Like if it's Goku is turned into a kid by a demon. The demon then leaves the planet, goes to another planet. You have to defeat that demon in order to break the spell. That sounds like it's pretty final. You know, like once the demon is defeated, the series is over. What further story would you tell from that series? You know, like I don't know, but I've also heard that because the Dragon Ball franchise is constantly expanding, that the Super anime is still being worked on because they're still going to adapt some of the stuff that Torotaro is writing, even though some of that is retellings of the movies, you know, like Superhero and Broly. And I don't think he adapted Broly, but I think he adapted Superhero into the manga already, or parts of it. And then there's parts of the manga that have not become parts of Super or the anime yet. So I don't know how they're going to handle that. Also, I'm not reading the Dragon Ball Super manga. I mean, it is what it is. But there's 100 way of doing things. If they do things in a way that is interesting, then that could be fun. If they do things in a way that makes it continuously boring, where it's still Goku with all the power of Goku, but he's a child, it's like, okay, well then why is he a kid? It doesn't even matter that he's a kid at that point. But if he loses all of his power and his memories and everything, he's just Kid Goku all over again. Then that could be fun, you know, because it's Kid Goku and he's in a different situation. But apparently Japan really likes Kid Goku, and that's their favorite version of Goku, which is why they keep going back to this Goku as a kid stuff, because that's what Japan likes. While the United States doesn't really care about Goku being a kid, because most of these people didn't watch Dragon Ball, the original one, because there were no Super Saiyans in it. You know, like this. There ain't no fucking Super Saiyans in it. I ain't watching. But it's crazy how many people watch Dragon Ball Z didn't watch Dragon Ball the original. It's just insane. And it says a lot about Toriyama's writing where you didn't need to write it. You didn't need to watch it, you know, because not a lot of stuff rolled over anyway, you know, so you didn't need to watch it. The Dragon Balls themselves, Bulma, Goku, Piccolo, and, you know, the cast members, they rolled over. But a lot of the storyline from the Red Ribbon Army, that rolled over. But that's it. You know, that was just about it from. And they could tell you what the Red Ribbon Army is in a panel. So you don't need to actually read all of that stuff or watch the entire series to get the idea. You know, Piccolo was another one. You didn't need to read all of that stuff. You could just tell him. And plus, Kami was still there, so you had dialogue between those two characters that tell you the entire story there, but it's an interesting um, way that he wrote it, where you didn't need to go back and read Dragon Ball or watch Dragon Ball in order to enjoy Dragon Ball Z. And the way they wrote Super is you have to have seen Z in order to understand Super. So that's why they wanted to have that continuous there. It says that we need a Thanos or a Galactus like antagonist. Well, that's what Frieza is supposed to be, you know. Or now Thanos, you could probably have that to be like a Frieza type of character. But Thanos and Galactus, they have different roles. Galactus is more the force of nature. He exists outside of time and all this kind of stuff, where he's like this immortal who virtually cannot be stopped. And if you was going to have that, it would have to be like a Beerus type of character. Now you can have an evil, quote unquote, god of destruction be like the ultimate villain, but they've had the Tournament of Power. We saw all of those characters already, and most of them seem to be mild mannered. It is what it is. I don't know. Piccolo also being able to keep up with the Saiyans was an issue. I don't know. What do you mean? In Super, Piccolo was. I liked how they did it in Superhero. I don't like that they changed his skin color, but the idea that he unlocked his full potential, I like that, because you can clearly tell somebody else wrote this, not Toriyama, because he probably didn't even remember that. But somebody remembered that Piccolo had never had his full potential opened. And by opening his full potential, it made him so much more powerful. That makes sense, because we don't know what Piccolo's ultimate potential is as a Namek. Why would it make him orange? It's kind of, like, why would it make him that? Well, I don't know. But at least that's a really good explanation, because when Krillin had his powers unlocked, he was able to stand toe to toe with, I was call them the Spirit Squad. Jesus, the Ginyu Squad, the Ginyu Force. Same thing with Gohan. Even though Gohan has had his potential unlocked like 100 times. So to me, it feels like we need a real antagonist in the series, and they're not in a rush to give one, because Dragon Ball is more of a mild, series now than it used to be. Dragon Ball used to be brutal, it used to be high testosterone, and it has elements of that now, but it's not quite that anymore. It's not hyper masculine, blood and guts, kind of stuff anymore. They're not doing stuff where people are being turned into candy bars and eaten. Like, that shit was frightening, bro. That was the only thing about Majin Buu I liked, is how frightening he was. That he turned the entire cast into like candy and was eating them. Like, that shit was frightening. But like, we need some shit like that. Like, that's what you need in this Tournament of Power. That's what you need in Dragon Ball, is, this terrible villain who has powers that cannot be explained. It comes from somewhere else. It has abilities that, like, I love that they never even tried to explain what Buu is. Right? Like, that's the wonderful thing about the terror of Majin Buu, is like, what the hell is that thing? And nobody knows what the hell that thing is. It's just a fat blob. A fat blob of what? We don't even know. It's got arms and legs and eyes, and it doesn't have a nose. It's got like a tentacle on its head. It looks weird. No explanation at all of where the hell that thing came from. It's just a thing. And sometimes not explaining shit is fine, because it adds to the element. It adds to the terror of it. Like, how did he have the ability to turn people into candy? Like, why would you give something that ability? You know, who his creator gave him the ability to turn people into candy bars. Why? Why? Like, why would you give somebody that ability? You know, so it was freakish at the time. I thought it was fun. But now Boo's been around too long and I don't like him. Now they have to find reasons why Boo can't do stuff. Oh, Boo is asleep. No, just destroy him already. Just Hakai and melt his ass. Man, get the hell out of here. We don't need Boo. You don't need Boo. You need Boo for. He's not even really a good gag character anymore. You know? So it's he probably should have been killed by the skinny by baby Boo or little Boo. Kid Boo as they call it. They should have had Kid Boo kill the fat one. You know, it probably would have been better. Boo is a Majin that was created at the beginning of time. Well, who created how Bibbidi exists if it was at the beginning of time? That's weird. Anyway, Black Sans said, what's your favorite fusion of the three of Gogeta, Vegito, and Gotenks? Well, I like Gotenks. Gotenks has more personality. The problem is he's underutilized, and I like the fusion idea mainly because I like the idea of dominant personalities, and it seems that Trunks' personality is the dominant personality in Gotenks. The cockiness of him seems to really come out, you know. So I think that Gotenks is a really fun character. I think he's underutilized though. I think both Gogeta and Vegito, you know, Vegito is a little bit cockier too. Seems to be a little bit more on the Vegeta side, you know, while Gogeta seems to be more on the Goku side. But it's weird. Fat Boo exists to be absorbed by Oob someday. Is that the reason why is that legit why he exists? Because I know they did that in GT. They had them fuse or something like that. Uh, but isn't Oob a human character? Like, I don't know. I know they did some crazy shit with the two of them in GT. I don't know what they're gonna do with. But if they're gonna do that, they need to hurry up because Majin Buu is pointless. He's an absolutely useless character. I would much rather have the human characters than have Majin Buu. You know, I would much rather you tell me what Yamcha's doing. Is he winning his baseball games? You know, did he get him some hoes yet? You know, or he get some more hoes? But I always thought like the reason why you like those characters from the original Dragon Ball is because they had character flaws that were very interesting and that you could continue to play with. Like the fact that Yamcha was a good looking guy who was good at sports but was shy. He didn't know how to talk to girls. You know? So it was always an odd thing that Yamcha was, you know, nervous around girls. And he was still nervous around girls, like as an adult. So that was always like a funny thing. And it's a dangling plot thread, I think, that we never got Yamcha be comfortable around girls. You know, so that's something that we would have liked. I know there's some kind of connection between Tien and Chaozu too that we never completed. I think that Tien is his bodyguard, isn't that? I'm trying to remember. Or I think Chaozu is some kind of local warlord or prince or something like that. Um, and you know, Tien was one of his bodyguards or something to that effect. I'm trying to remember, but we never got a outcome to that storyline either. So there's storylines out there that have been dropped in Dragon Ball that we could have completed. So there's a lot of spin-off material, but you know, I'd rather do that than a lot of these tournaments of power stuff. And you know, when they went into the other universes, like when they had the Universe 6 Saiyans, I thought that was fun. You know, they caught up too fast. The same thing I thought with Broly is they entirely caught him up too fast. Um, but you know, it was interesting having more Saiyans. I thought even maybe that it would be interesting if they did like this cross universe thing where maybe the Universe 6 Saiyans invaded Universe 7. Like that could have been fun. There could have been some fun stuff that you could do. But there's too many characters floating around. In terms of main cast characters, there's just too many of them, and they don't serve any purpose outside of uh, just being there for jokes and Bulma's barbecues, show up at her birthday parties, and that's it. Like most of these characters are not characters Goku even talks to. And I think somebody was talking about this before, like in all of the Dragon Ball material, there's never been a Chaozu Goku conversation. Like they've never talked, and they're friends, and they've never talked on panel. So you're like, look at all this stuff that has gone undeveloped. So that's why when I hear stuff like Dragon Ball Magic, I'm like, it's cool. Okay, we're gonna do some stuff that we've never done before. Like that was the cool thing about GT is you had the little team up between Goku and Android 18. Like these two characters don't really even interact. I don't think they interacted the entire time of the Android saga. No, because Goku was dying the entire time. And then she was already gotten eaten by the time he woke up. So those two characters never even interacted that much. And so here it is in the Super Android 17 part of the GT, and they have to do a little team up. So I thought that was fun. It was a nice little thing there. Super Android 17 is very weird, but okay. You have two people build the same robot. Okay. Sure. And then they're going to fuse. The two halves are going to fuse. So it's weird, but you have all these characters that exist, and barely anybody interact with each other, but they barely have any reason to interact with one another, and so they seemingly just hang around. They just hanging. It's like why, So it's weird. So you definitely want to do more. And opening up the franchise gives them a lot of opportunities to do different stuff that they've never done before and do things that are interesting, and things that, you might not expect that might be fun, you know. What so Dragon Ball continuing, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. So I'm not really tripping on Dragon Ball Magic being a recreate, as long as it's not a complete shot for shot, flow for flow, bar for bar rip off of GT. I'm fine with it. Similarly, when it comes to old anime, I think I put this in the Discord. I also said it on Twitter. I'm gonna say it here. I'm going to watch Sailor Moon. So next week, I am going to have an analysis of Sailor Moon. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to watch it and take notes. I've only been able to find the dubbed version. I know there's like 3 different versions of Sailor Moon out there. I don't know what order to watch after the original, so I'm gonna have to look that up and see. Sailor Moon Super. I think there's a Sailor Moon Super. There's like a Super S or a Sailor Moon R and all that. I don't know how that works. I want to watch the original Sailor Moon, and I may try to tie it into female psychology. I talk a lot about male psychology here, and I kind of want to look into the female psychology a little bit. And my girlfriend says I should watch the Powerpuff Girls, and I'm probably gonna end up watching Powerpuff Girls and Sailor Moon. Probably not at the same time, but I may end up watching them back to back maybe. So I'm gonna watch Sailor Moon first because it's anime, and I put anime first. But then I may end up watching Powerpuff Girls at some point. Uh, did you hear about Fist of the North Star? I did. I'm very excited for that. I am very happy to be here. I am very happy for the Fist of the North Star remake. Uh, it's that's going to kick ass. Um, oh, Fist of the North Star, man. What an epic series that is. That is one of the most masculine things ever made. I mean, big hulking hero. You know, he's still kind of emotional, but he's not like overly emotional. He's a thinking man's fighter. But what I particularly like is it's clearly inspired by Mad Max with uh with martial arts content. So it's perfect. You know, it's a wasteland, dead world, and all these guys are the students of martial arts schools, and they're fighting to see who's the best. But all these guys are all warlords and are domineering and doing horrible things to people. And then here comes Ken, you know, punching their hearts into their throats and all kind of stuff. You know, splitting their heads open with his fingers. Just all kinds of chaotic shit, man. Oh my god! As long as it's bloody and crazy and not on Netflix, I'll probably watch it. If it's gonna be on Netflix, I'm gonna have to question question that a little bit. But um, I'm going to this is gonna be pretty wild, man. If it's if it's like it should be, like the manga is, I'm gonna love Fist of the North Star, and we all will, you know, because then somebody's eyeballs are gonna pop out of their head because Kenshin punched them in the stomach. That's gonna be great, and he's gonna hit uh, their Moon River channeling point that's gonna allow their thighs to explode. You know, like their heart's gonna, both of their hearts are gonna explode in 2 seconds, and you know, at first I thought it was kind of silly, but I was like, when I started like when I first watched the Fist of the North Star anime, I thought it was silly. But then I read the manga, I got it, I understood, you know. But just watching the movies and stuff like that, I was like, this show kind of silly. Baki, I watched Baki the Grappler. I watched up to the part where they did like all the prisoners escaping and stuff, but I don't like the animation. So, and I don't care about the story either. I just never really got into it. They're super bulky, and I just don't. I didn't connect with none of the characters in Baki the Grappler. I think Netflix is doing it too, which doesn't help at all. Yeah, Baki the Grappler is pretty nutty. You know, it's a pretty nutty show. I just never got into it personally, but it seemed like it's trying to be like the spiritual successor to Fist of the North Star. You know, I also never got into the JoJo universe. I don't like the animation. I don't like the art style. You know, so it's hard for me. Like that's one of the things. Like it's a visual medium, so I'm certainly looking at the art style first. I never really got into it. I'm collecting the hardcovers of Fist of the North Star. You need a remake of Yu Yu Hakusho. I need them to reprint the manga so I can buy it. Reprint the manga so I can buy it. Speaking of which, I need to buy the Dragon Ball manga. I don't have no Dragon Ball manga, so I need to probably start buying Dragon Ball manga, huh? You know what I'm going to do when I eventually, and I don't think it's ever going. It's certainly not going to happen this year, probably. Whenever I get through this Attack on Titan, I'm probably going to start buying Dragon Ball again. I'll start with the original Dragon Ball and go all the way through it. He said Baki is really nutty. The MC really got pissed on by another character. Yeah, I don't know. I tried watching it. I thought it was interesting when they released all of those prisoners, and I was like, okay, this might be fun. But then I kind of trailed off, and I was like, big shrug. You know, I don't know. The show was good. What show? Yu Yu Hakusho? Because the show Yu Yu Hakusho was fantastic. I think kids are forgetting how good. I don't think a lot of kids don't, see how good it was. I think they should remake Cowboy Bebop too, especially since the live action show came out and basically ruined everything. They need to re-release the Cowboy Bebop. I heard they came out with a new Foolie Cooley. the FLCL. I hate that show. I hated that show when I was a kid. I always hated Fooly Cooley. It was so terrible. It seemed so random. They reprinted the manga on that too. I don't know why, but they did. I did get the reprints of Dirty Pair. I don't think I told you guys that. I've already read it too. How many of you are familiar with the Dirty Pair? Because they reprinted a lot of the material, and I have that, and it's out there. Toguro was a great villain. Yes, he was great. I don't like the ending though, and that became the beginning of my problem with Yu Yu Hakusho, was them trying to redeem the villains at the end, because they had some really badass villains, you know. Toguro, oh shit, the next guy, the human guy. Give me his name. You know, he got the dot on his head. They tried to humanize him too later on. I was like, no. And then they did the same thing in the demon tournament where they had Yomi, the blind demon. And they ended up humanizing that character too. I was like, no, stop trying to give everybody a redemption arc. Where are the villains in this fucking story? You know? But they do horrible things to people, and then you feel bad for him because he's got cancer. You know, like, what? He did all these horrible things and wanted to have demons overrun the human world because he had cancer? That's stupid. That's stupid. Oh shit! Now I'm gonna be sitting here forever, thinking for his name and not trying to. Sensui, that was his name. Shinobu Sensui. He was tremendous. Shinobu Sensui was such an excellent villain. It was even better because you could tell that human potential was so high that he was able to basically ice so many villains on his own. And now he's the new standard bearer for, the best human detective. Even though Yusuke stopped being a detective and more being like a guy who fights demons. He's not really a detective anymore. He doesn't really do detective work. He went undercover. Well, didn't even go undercover really when he did the whole Four Saint Beasts. That wasn't even an undercover mission. It was just like him. He was doing an infiltration. And then the tournament was a tournament. And then the next one was Sensui basically calling him out and wanting to kick his shit in. Because Sensui wants to destroy the earth for some odd reason. But they also did a little bit of investigating there, I guess. A little bit. They didn't do a lot. And then that big tournament arc. I think he dropped the ball on the ending. But that's me personally. And also, same thing happened. There was no villain. No villain. They set up Yomi to be the villain. Then they dropped the ball on that too. And then they set up whoever that was. I forget the name of the character that was training Hiei. Then they dropped the ball on that too. Frieza is the very definition of evil. Yes, at least for now. At least for now, they haven't found a way to redeem Frieza yet, and hopefully they don't. Thankfully, he doesn't stay around long enough to go through all that. But Tournament of Power, they got really close to redeeming him, by having him fight alongside them and everything. It was a strange bedfellow situation, but he definitely should have betrayed them, and tried to kill them, which would have been nice. But they didn't. All right, so I said I was going to watch Sailor Moon, so I'm going to begin Sailor Moon. Oh, I didn't like Yusuke being part demon. That was so stupid. Oh, I hated that so much. It's such an ass pull. And he's part demon from his great 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 grandfather, who is just so happened to be dying right now. Fuck out of here with that crap. I didn't like that. I didn't like that. I guess they just wanted to create the demon arc and give him a reason to be, or try to explain his bad behaviors that he's got. Why was he such a rotten kid? Well, it's because he's got a demon. What do you call it? An atavism or something like that. He's got a demon atavism. He's part demon. That's why he's such a terrible kid. I don't know about that. I don't like that. And then he's one of the strongest demons at that. Kind of goofy. Ooh, it's hot in here. I love the Yu Yu Hakusho. Just reprint the manga and I'll be happy. Reprint that joint. I don't see why they don't keep certain stuff in print, Especially if it's a popular manga, why would it ever go out of print? Like I know Naruto and Dragon Ball are never going out of print. It's never gonna happen. Those franchises are too strong in the United States to ever go out of print. They're always gonna find new ways of releasing uh, Dragon Ball and Naruto. They're just gonna keep re-releasing Omnibuy and stuff, so that's never going anywhere. But not being able to find like stuff that used to be on Adult Swim, it might have been fun. Like they're about to reprint Trigun, which is great because I wasn't reading manga when Trigun was out, so I'm going to I've already pre-ordered the Trigun thing, so that ought to be fun. They about to reprint Hellsing too. Even though I think they got um, big giant versions of Hellsing, but I'm gonna get those too. And I'm gonna end up watching the Hellsing manga. I'm sorry, anime eventually. I don't think I've watched the entire thing. I think I probably watched like one or two episodes, and then I kind of lost. No, they used to do these. They come out with the DVDs, and there'd be a couple of episodes on the DVD. And I remember having Hellsing, and I think I probably had like the first 5 episodes on there, and I never seen anything after that. So I want to end up watching Hellsing eventually, probably near closer to Halloween. I want to do Sailor Moon first, though. Ooh, it's hot in here. Who has had better character development, Piccolo or Krillin? Well, it seemed like the easy answer would be Piccolo, but I think the answer might actually be Krillin because, well, it probably is Piccolo, but Piccolo was always an original person. He was always his own person, and he wanted revenge on Goku, and then he got his revenge early in Z, and it was unfulfilling. Then he found redemption in training Gohan, and he's pretty much been uh, the same character since. He's very isolative and withdrawn, so it's not much, you know. Rurouni Kenshin. How do you have a new anime for Rurouni Kenshin? I've seen Rurouni Kenshin. I have one of the volumes here. They stopped printing the books because the author is a pedophile or something like that. But they stopped reprinting the books. But I got volumes 10, 11, and 12 of Rurouni Kenshin right here in my hand. I haven't read it yet. Um, it features one of the greatest villains in anime, and I love that guy. You know, I love that character. Have I ever seen Avatar: The Last Airbender? Of course, I've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender. You mean the American anime that changed the world? It took me a while to get into Rurouni. The Rurouni Kenshin thing is a remake. It's a remake. Do I want to watch the remake? I don't remember watching that. I watched the original. The original was fun. It wasn't. It was okay. I always wanted to have a little crew like the Jupungatana. You know what a cool name that was for these guys. Japan does not run from their history at all. They do a lot of stuff that's based off of their history. I'm going to take a look at this new Rurouni Kenshin. That ought to be fun. I'm going to check it out before I go to bed. I may watch one episode or so because I didn't know this thing existed. I thought they killed the franchise because they didn't like the guy who wrote it. What's worse, Dragon Ball Evolution or the last Airbender? Well, Dragon Ball Evolution. The last Airbender movie wasn't that great, but it was bad as far as an adaptation is concerned. But it clearly was set up to continue. You know, they did the best they could, given the limitations that they had. Dragon Ball Evolution is just a pathetic attempt. It's pathetic. Yeah, I'm very surprised to even hear that they even did anything with the Rurouni Kenshin property, considering the uh, the author. You know, like the author does terrible shit. Usually, that's it for him. Uh, Rank the DBZ movies: Cooler's Revenge, Super 13, Wrath of the Dragon. Well, for me, Wrath of the Dragon is probably dead last. I wasn't thrilled about Super 13. Like I wasn't. I didn't think it was great, but at the very least, it was it was okay. Remind me, Wrath of the Dragon is the movie with Tapion in it, right? That's Wrath of the Dragon, right? Where he's got it's their version of Link. He's got his ocarina and he controls the beast and all this kind of stuff. Eh, it's the movie where Trunks learns where he gets his sword. It's kind of goofy. I didn't really care about that. Super Android 17. I'm sorry, Super Android 13. It just seems like it was a waste of. It's like a money grab. Super Android 13 felt like a money grab. You know, what's the name though? Felt like legit. Cooler's Revenge felt good. You know, it also felt a little bit like a money grab. Um, felt a little bit like a money grab. A little bit. All right, so here it is: Rurouni Kenshin Meiji Kinkaku Ramatan English sub. I didn't know they had so many. Rurouni Kenshin Sisuhin. Well, I know that that the story continues after um what's the name? But I didn't know. Oh, so it got 12 episodes. Is that the whole first series or something like that? Maybe I'll check it out. Yeah, Wrath of the Dragon sucks. That was a money grab right there. Wrath of the Dragon was a money grab. So was Super Android 13. I feel like both of those movies were useless. BoJack is better than all of those. So Cooler's Revenge is okay. You know, um, Cooler's Revenge is good. I think. You know. No, see the thing is, some of these movies they actually seek to add something to the property, while others are basically they just exist to to get money. you know, I don't feel like Like I feel like a lot of the Dragon Balls, like some of the Dragon Ball Z movies, like the BoJack movie, the story of Trunks, BoJack. I'm sorry, yeah, BoJack. BoJack adds to the property because it's something different, something new. Um, the the Bardock special, the Trunks special, those things add to the property. But Lord Slug kind of added to the property. The Tree of Might kind of added to the property. Yes, they play a lot off of the arcs that they were written around. You know, you got a Saiyan that comes to Earth. He creates a tree that he eats the tree and eats the fruit from the tree and gets magic powers or increases his powers or whatever. Comes across like a money grab, you know, but it actually does add a little something to the property. It adds a little something to the property. Lord Slug adds a little something to the property, even though, it's kind of playing off of the Super Namek, the Piccolo stuff. But you could see how it could add something to the property. Android 13 literally doesn't add anything to the property, right? It's just kind of like, well, if there's a 19 and a 20 and an 18 and a 17, then surely there's a 15, 14, 13. Like, oh, hell no. Who cares, bro? Like, we are perfectly fine not knowing Androids 1 through 16 or 1 through 15. We're perfectly fine not knowing those people exist. I don't think they add anything. The super movies really do add, though. They actually add to the cast and everything, too. So Battle of Gods basically added a lot of transformations, and it added Whis and Beerus to the cast, and it added a lot to the story. Broly added a lot to the story. Superhero looks like it's going to add to the story because they're going to keep the scientist around, and they're going to add him to the cast. So it looks like the super movies might actually add to the series, while the Z movies were basically cash grabs on the series. Broly was written because there was a lot of talk at the legendary Super Saiyan, so we got to show that person. And then they just conjured up Broly with this half-baked story of him being psychotic because Goku cried a lot, which was goofy. What also was very interesting that they did is in the Broly movie, they changed Broly's age. They made him Vegeta's age rather than making him Goku's age. So even though you see Broly in the movie, he looks young. He's actually Vegeta's age. I think they're around the same age, actually. Because Vegeta is significantly older than Goku. But Broly and Vegeta were across pods from each other. So interesting. DBZ movies are in a different timeline. Well, yeah, that's pretty obvious. But they add something to the property overall in terms of, do they flesh out the stories that they're supposed to reflect? And most of the time, the Z movies, they do a little bit sometimes, but other times they're just complete cash grabs and they don't really add anything to the product, to the overall product. And because, not just because those characters will never be mentioned again, but because those characters serve the same function as characters that we already have. You know, that's kind of how I felt about like I forget the one that had Janemba in it, but that was the first one you got to see Gogeta in. So that actually added something. You know, so that was the draw of the movie. That was the reason I watched it. Like that was the reason I watched it. You didn't see Gogeta in any other movie, so that worked out. Was it Fusion Reborn? I think it was called. There was so many of those goddamn movies. There's way too many of them. I would prefer if we just stopped with the Super Saiyans. I would prefer it. You know, I don't even think we need the Super Saiyan Blue. To me, that seems like, or the red. It seems ridiculous. Now we just going to change his hair color from yellow to red to blue because we going to sell action figures. Yeah, all the characters are redundant and stuff like that. So I really wish we had not done Super Saiyan Blue or red. go from 3 to 4. I like 4. 4 is fine. And if they need to go beyond 4, you got fusion. You know? So I don't see why we need to have different hair colors. And also, I think we've gone off track. That's what I did like about the Broly movie, is they explained that even though Broly doesn't have a tail, he was tapping into his beast form that have him like what was that, the times 10 multiplier that comes with the beast form. He was using that in his base form, and he also had sort of the same weakness as the Great Ape form, is that he couldn't control it and he's basically psychotic. That worked for me in terms of explaining how Broly is so stupid powerful. Doesn't explain how he could fight a Super Saiyan God, but you know, it's it's an explanation of how he can hang with a Super Saiyan. If Goku is or Vegeta at that point in time was tapping him up, and he went into some kind of psychotic Great Ape mode, and now he can hang. All right, that's fine. But then when you want to start saying, okay, he's in God mode, and somehow Broly is still beating his ass, and we don't have no explanation for all of this. All right, maybe we ought to talk about the power scaling and how this is getting out of control. Like it was really getting ridiculous where he was fighting Goku and Vegeta at the same time, and they were in their blue forms. I'm like, bro, get out of here. No way. No way. There's better ways to fight to write this story than to just have Broly be this. But that was always going to be the problem in the first place. Is Broly was supposed to be like some sort of super monstrous Super Saiyan form, and you could even make the excuse that he had Super Saiyan 2 while everybody else is basically a Super Saiyan. Okay, that's fine. That was the original Z version of Broly. He is so much more powerful because he's on a different level. In Super, you go from Broly, not even really being able to beat Vegeta hand to hand in base mode, to him literally 10 minutes later kicking the shit out of Goku in red. He's like, okay, no, you're going too far. Like let's chill now. Like let's relax. Now, if they did something where maybe they wished for Broly to have that kind of power, then yeah, we could say that. And we could even go by, Broly is using some kind of force multiplier. Like I said, he's using his Great Ape power in his base form, which would literally be like his version of the Kaioken, but he would be psychotic. And then that explains how he's able to fight on par with a Super Saiyan. But as soon as you go like Super Saiyan 2 or whatever, you should be able to mop the floor with Broly, and he should have been able to get held down at the very least. But them not being able to control him, even in blue form, the fact that they had to fuse, it's like, get out of here. That's just too much. It's just too much. It's too far too fast. It's too far too fast. I think, especially with the ending that they gave, which I think was a very satisfying ending. It was a very good one in terms of him being wished back to the planet that he came from. You could have done that in a way that I think tells the story better. Let's say he's outclassed because, Broly's never been in a fight before. You do the thing. Frieza tries to draw out Broly's power, and he ended up doing so by killing Paragus. But we end up seeing that, no matter how psychotic he is and how crazy he is, he doesn't have God power. So they're able to restrain him, stop him, or whatever. And Frieza's like, okay, well, this is the best you can do. I'm gonna kill you because I have no use for you. If you can't defeat these guys, so Frieza's going to kill him. And that's when Chilai, wishes for Broly to go back to his home planet, and he basically was going to get executed by Frieza, and for being too weak. And then he gets saved by getting whisked back to his planet. But by having him just constantly increase in power. It just seems ridiculous. It's like, okay, so how are you going to ever integrate him into the cast? And it seems like they're not going to. They're going to leave him on his planet. Okay, fine. But at some point, you have to say, like, there has to be a limit. You know, it can't be limitless. Get it? Especially now, it can be limitless, but what they're doing with Goku and Vegeta is training them. They are coming up with different ways of gaining new powers, you know, through meditation and constant physical and you know, all this kind of stuff, kinds of training. Broly's not doing any of that stuff. He's just and drawing out more and more power. And it seemed like, okay, there has to be some kind of limit to this because this guy didn't have this much. Like, it's okay because we didn't know what his original power set was. So now we're dealing with this sort of nebulous, how strong is he really? And then you add the sort of force multiplier of the grade 8 form. And then his Super Saiyan form after Paragus dies. But that should still not get you to God Super Saiyan form. That really shouldn't get you there. You know, it shouldn't. And then even that, you shouldn't have to fuse into Gogeta to beat him. That seems ridiculous to me. And it seemed like, okay, now we reached into fan service where we just want to throw everything we got at you. Because the Broly fans will be upset if he gets beat up and he gets his ass kicked by, you know, just Vegeta in base form. So we can't do that. We can't have him get beat up by Super Saiyan because they're going to be pissed. So he's got to be able to rival, you know, he had to be able to rival them in some way. All right. But him basically being the Incredible Hulk in the, in the Dragon Ball universe where there is no upper limit to it, and he has to basically be saved from himself, is mind blowing. And even though you tell the story of him having a tremendous power level, it has to have, once you set that these guys can do all this stuff, it doesn't stand to reason that somebody that has not gone through the training that they have gone through can naturally, within minutes, catch up with them. It just doesn't make sense. You know, so we went into fan service mode on that movie, but it was fine. It was still fun. I just thought that, okay, we crossed over into fan servicey. We need to have Gogeta. Then we got to have Gogeta Blue beat him. Come on. Like, are you serious? You know, like, what? You know, him beating Frieza's ass for an hour was great, though. That was pretty cool. You know, that ruled. That kicked ass. Oh, they are bringing him into the universe. Oh boy. See, now you're going to have the Boo problem because if Broly's going to be a regular cast member and he has like really no upper limit to his power, how do you write a villain that's going to be able to beat him? And then if you're going to write a villain that can't beat him, then we're stuck with the villains are not a threat. So I don't know. We're stuck with something. But Broly being a god of destruction could be fun. I think that would be fun. I don't even like the whole Rage Trunks idea. It was kind of goofy. It was goofy. In the Zamasu arc, it was goofy. You know, there's ways of doing this stuff that I think better fits into the Dragon Ball universe. But that was another thing I felt was kind of like fan fiction-y. Like, we can't have Trunks like a bitch in his own universe, so we got to do something. He's going to create a gigantic sword. He's going to cut this guy. Like, there's no way that he should be able to hurt Zamasu in that form. There's just no way he should have been able to hurt him. You know? So that seemed goofy to me. But whatever. It's one of those things that, much like Gohan having secret powers, Trunks got him too, apparently. Everybody except Goten got him. I'm hot. Do you think that Dragon Ball or other properties should do a Mortal Kombat 1 type reboot? You know what? That's an interesting question because I think that Mortal Kombat, it went on so long. See, the thing is, Mortal Kombat, and I think this happens a lot. And you know what? It happens. It should happen. Let's put it like that. Um, because you should not expect your property or your franchise to be as popular as it is. When those guys were creating Mortal Kombat, they never expected Mortal Kombat to be what it ended up being. So they tried to build upon the franchise as much as possible. And in doing so, they made some mistakes. Just some creative errors, like killing Liu Kang and doing some of the other things, time jumping and all this kind of other weird shit they were doing. And they were kind of like, okay, we fucked everything up. Like we got too close to the sun. We lost control over the creative of this property that we didn't expect to get this far. So we're going to reboot it, clear out all the garbage, keep a lot of the characters. Now that we've built the universe, we know what world they live in and what race of people they are and what their story is and what their purpose is. And we're going to restart the story now with all of these characters already being part of the universe. I think that's a useful weapon in how to deal with a franchise that has been going on for so long and when there's a lot of creative clutter. So I don't hate reboots. So I think if you were to reboot Dragon Ball, the story will come across as being very different. For starters, you would know Goku as a Saiyan from the beginning, so you would have an explanation to why he's a giant ape. You would have it would destroy the drama of Goku being the guy who killed Grandpa Gohan, because I remember when I first saw it, I was like, damn, that's sad as hell, you know. But all of that will be explained. You know, Frieza destroying planet Vegeta at the behest of Beerus will be explained. There'll be a lot of stuff that will be in it that will be explained. The Supreme Kai and Majin Buu, all that kind of stuff that will have to be explained or put into the universe already. The Super Saiyan would not have to be a legend, but would actually have to be a real thing. So that's a real fear for Frieza. So it's not just Frieza is insecure and paranoid, but that he legitimately knows that the Super Saiyan exists and, or has existed at some point. Then you would have to tell them who the Super Saiyan is. You have to flesh out Bardock and everybody. It'd definitely be a much different story if you would have rebooted Dragon Ball. If they would to just say, we're going to take 3 years and we're going to reboot Dragon Ball from the very beginning, and it's just going to be called Dragon Ball. No Dragon Ball Z, no Dragon Ball Super. Just Dragon Ball, the definitive edition of Dragon Ball from the very beginning, with everything that you know, all of the characters that we've featured throughout the series, from Lord Slug to Turles to all of them. The Cooler, we're going to put them all in there. I think people would buy that. I think people would be excited for that. Because then everything would be canon, and it would be a much different property rather than what it is now, which is threads of this and threads of that, and some of this stuff makes sense and other things in this thing doesn't. So I think Dragon Ball could use a reboot, but I think the franchise has to get to a certain level. And I think Toriyama's probably too old to do it himself. So, other people should probably just come up with a definitive version of Dragon Ball and say, we're going to start with a manga from chapter 1 that's going to retell Dragon Ball from the very beginning featuring all of the characters that we have used in licensed Dragon Ball material, whether it's Bardock and Broly and all this kind of stuff from the very beginning. And then you tell the story from the very beginning, introducing characters and taking characters out of the story. I think it would make sense. I think people would love that. That way, everything will be canon, and they'll just do nothing but try to still do spinoffs and movies and shit too. So it end up being just, oh yeah, we still like this idea though. We're gonna throw this in there. But yeah, to answer your question, most franchises that have been around for a long time could use a reboot, especially if there's a lot of retcons, especially if the retcons change the nature of the product. And some people will see that Bardock and Goku's mom legitimately loving him and caring about him, that changes the nature of Goku, because it means he would have had some decent parents and grew up in a decent environment, and he might have been the thing about Goku is he's an abnormal Saiyan, you know. He's gentle for a Saiyan, you know. He likes fighting, that's just in his genetics, but he's more of a sportsman. He's not a bloodthirsty killing machine, you know. He cares. By making Bardock somebody who also cares, you're showing them that okay, Goku was basically he was going to be okay either way. I don't know. Do you got this new Piccolo beating Hit? Well, I don't know. That's a good question. What can Piccolo do against the whole time stopping thing? Like, you got to realize that Hit's power is a hack. It's not just a power level thing. It's also that he can, you know, basically teleport and time travel and shit. You know, like, it's a completely different thing. Can Piccolo figure it out? Sure. Can he stop it? I don't know. You know. And plus, we don't know what, like, I hate that he's orange. We don't know what Orange Piccolo can do and can't do. You know, I don't know. But I would say I would hope he couldn't. I would hope he couldn't. I don't know. Raditz was still a dick though. Yeah, I mean, but just imagine if they'd have rebooted it, how they could have filled out Raditz. You know, they could have fleshed him out a little bit more. And I like that idea that when Raditz came to Earth, he was brutal. You know, Kakarot being his brother, he didn't give a fuck about that. You know, like that never factored into, like, the sympathy does not factor in. But in Super, you know, he's getting updates on his brother and all this kind of stuff, and it's like, wait a minute. You know, his parents are checking in on him through the scouter. Oh, hey, how are you doing? Are you eating? You know, make them seem like they're normal people. I don't know about that. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that too much. But, you know, it's weird. But, you know, that's just a matter of the minor changes that they did. You know, that's just the minor changes that they did. And when it comes to Nappa and all them, and, you know, it's, you know, the Doria and Zarbon. It would be nice for you to do like a retelling of the story that features those characters again, or expanded their role. That could be fun, you know. But I don't know. All right, y'all. It's time to wrap this up. So thanks everybody for stopping by. I guess we will revisit Dragon Ball Magic when we have more information, especially more accurate information, and we'll see what it turns into. But next week we begin our look at Sailor Moon. So I guess you can get ready for that. I just hope it's not a waste of my time. But all in all, if it sucks, then I'm only watching the first series. I'm not jumping over to like Sailor Moon R and all that shit, because I know something comes after this. It was like Dragon Ball where there's like other parts to it. But there's no need for me to venture over into that stuff if the original sucks. So we're gonna see if I can stand Sailor Moon. All in all, though, thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.